The first time my package vanished, I told myself it was a glitch. The second time, I blamed porch pirates. By the third time, I realized this wasn't random. It was personal. Because whoever was stealing from me wasn't sneaking around at night. They were bold, brazen, and confident enough to wave at my security camera while doing it. Let me rewind, because the setup matters. I moved into Sunrise Meadows thinking I was buying peace. You know the kind. Identical houses, trimmed lawns, fake smiles at the mailbox. The kind of neighborhood where the HOA promises community standards, but really means control. I was fresh off a divorce, splitting weekends with my son, Miguel. I wanted stability. Quiet. A place where nothing unexpected ever happens. That illusion lasted exactly 9 days. I'm Jake Martinez. 38. Electrician. I fix problems for a living, panels, breakers, wires that people are afraid to touch. I like systems that make sense. Cause and effect. Flip the switch, the light turns on. HOAs don't work like that. My first Amazon delivery was a pair of steel-toe boots. Required gear. No boots, no job. The app showed a photo, box placed neatly on my porch, welcome mat visible. When I got home? Empty concrete. No box. No note. No nothing. Annoying, but fine. I reordered. 2 days later, another delivery. This time, I checked my ring cam the moment I pulled into the driveway. And there it was. A woman in a crisp white blouse and oversized sunglasses walking up like she owned the place. No hood. No rush. She picked up the box, glanced straight into the camera, and smiled. Not a thief's smile. A smile that said, "What are you going to do about it?" That was my first close-up of Brenda Walsh. HOA president. 3 years running. 40-something. Perfect hair. Clipboard permanently attached to her arm like a badge of authority. She drove a spotless white BMW and patrolled the streets like a suburban sheriff. Measuring tape in the glove compartment. Violation notices ready to go. Mailbox too low? Citation. Trash can visible for 6 extra minutes? Citation. Grass half an inch too tall? Citation. But stealing packages? Apparently that was beneath the rules. I reported it. Police shrugged. Civil matter. HOA board? Silence. Brenda herself? She sent me a warning letter for unsightly porch clutter. That's when the pattern locked in. Every package after that vanished. Work gloves. Electrical components. Even a birthday gift for Miguel. Always delivered. Always gone. Always Brenda, caught on camera, ripping boxes open in her driveway like it was Christmas morning. And every time, she'd look right at the lens. Wave. Smile. Dare me. The rage built slow, then all at once. Because this wasn't just theft. It was humiliation. Power. A message. She wasn't hiding because she didn't think she had to. HOA presidents don't get consequences. They get away with things. But here's the thing Brenda didn't know about electricians. We don't get mad. We get precise. By the 5th stolen package, I stopped calling anyone for help. By the 7th, I stopped reordering essentials. By the 9th, I started planning. Not revenge. Proof. Because if there's one thing HOAs fear more than lawsuits, it's undeniable evidence. And that's when I decided to send myself one last package. A box she wouldn't be able to resist. A box designed for exactly one purpose. To make sure that when she stole again, the whole neighborhood would finally see who she really was. The trick wasn't catching Brenda in the act. I already had that. The problem was that every time I showed the footage, she had an excuse ready. Maintenance inspection. Abandoned property. Safety concern. HOA magic words. The kind that make cops nod and back away slowly. So I needed something she couldn't explain. Something that didn't rely on interpretation. Something that would speak for itself. That idea hit me while I was rewiring a panel at work. My hands were black with grime, my mind running on autopilot, when I thought about how current behaves. You can't argue with it. You can't gaslight it. When it flows, it leaves a mark. That's when I remembered an old trick from job sites: anti-theft dye packs. Harmless. Non-toxic. But aggressive. The kind of stuff banks use. The kind that stains skin, clothes, and pride for days. I went home and started building. Inside a standard Amazon box, I installed a simple pressure-triggered dye release. No electronics. No noise. No explosion. Just physics. Open the box wrong, and it would spray a neon blue dye, bright enough to show up on camera, clothes, hands, driveway. Impossible to miss. Impossible to deny. I tested it twice. Then 3 times. Perfect. I labeled the package like any other. Brown cardboard. Prime tape. Address clear. No warnings. No hints. Just another delivery sitting on my porch like bait. And then I waited. The next morning, my phone buzzed at 10:42 a.m. Your package has been delivered. I didn't even check the photo. I already knew what was coming. I opened my Ring app and pulled up Live View. Right on schedule, Brenda's BMW rolled to a stop in front of my house. She stepped out like she was clocking into a shift. Clipboard tucked under her arm. Sunglasses on. Confident. Untouchable. She walked up my driveway. Paused. Looked around. Then, just like every other time, she picked up the box. But this time, something was different. She didn't smile. She frowned. Because the box was heavier than expected. Not much. Just enough to make her curious. And curiosity is dangerous when you're already convinced you can't lose. She carried it back to her driveway and set it down. I watched from my phone as she sliced through the tape with a key. Quick. Aggressive. No hesitation. The moment she pulled the flaps apart. Blue. Everywhere. A thick cloud of neon dye blasted upward and outward. It coated her hands. Her blouse. Her face. It splattered across the pristine white hood of her BMW like a crime scene. She screamed. Not a polite gasp. A full, panicked, animal sound. She dropped the box and stumbled backward, slipping on the dye pooling on her driveway. Her clipboard went flying. Papers scattered, instantly stained. She tried wiping her face. Made it worse. Her hands were glowing. Her clothes looked radioactive. Even her sunglasses were dripping blue. And the Ring camera? Captured. Every second. Within minutes, neighbors started coming outside. Doors opened. Phones came out. Someone laughed. Someone else asked what happened. Brenda tried to explain. She pointed at the box. At my house. At the camera. But no words came out that made sense. Because standing there, drenched in blue dye, on her own driveway, next to a box addressed to me, there was only one explanation. And the neighborhood was about to connect the dots. Brenda didn't call the police. That alone told me everything. Because innocent people call the cops. People who think they've been wrong demand authority. But guilty people? They panic. They calculate. They try to control the narrative. And Brenda Walsh was a master of narrative control. Within an hour, the HOA group chat lit up. Not with concern, but with spin. A message from Brenda herself, claiming she'd been targeted by a dangerous prank, and that residents should be on alert for suspicious behavior. No mention of why she was opening a package addressed to me. No explanation for the dye. Just victim language. Fear language. Classic HOA playbook. What she didn't account for was speed. Because while she was scrubbing her driveway and calling a detail service for her BMW, I was doing something else. I clipped the footage. Every angle. Porch pickup. Driveway opening. The dye explosion. Her reaction. The neighbors gathering. All time-stamped. All crystal clear. Then I posted it. Not publicly, yet. First stop, the HOA board. I sent a single email. Subject line: package theft, video evidence. No rant. No accusations. Just the footage attached and one sentence. Please explain why the HOA president is opening packages addressed to my home. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Because if there's one thing power hates, it's being ignored. The voicemail was chaos. Brenda's voice, shaky and furious, bouncing between threats and fake concern. She claimed she thought the box was misdelivered. Then accused me of setting a booby trap. Then demanded I delete the footage. For the good of the community. That was the moment I knew this was bigger than me. So I forwarded the video to the neighborhood email list. No commentary. No captions. Just the footage. The reaction was immediate. Replies stacked up faster than I could read them. Neighbors asking questions. Others apologizing, for siding with her before, for ignoring complaints, for laughing off the rumors. One guy mentioned his medication package went missing last month. Another woman said her son's birthday gift disappeared twice. Pattern recognized. And Brenda? She went silent. For exactly 12 hours. Then the formal letter arrived. HOA letterhead. Legal tone. Lots of bolded phrases. They accused me of installing a hazardous device and endangering a board member. They demanded I pay for vehicle cleaning, clothing replacement, and emotional distress. I almost laughed. Because here's the thing about dye packs. They're legal. They're non-toxic. And they only activate when someone opens something they shouldn't. My lawyer confirmed it in one phone call. She had no right to open the package. You're in the clear. But Brenda wasn't done. That night she knocked on my door. Hard. I checked the camera before answering. Her face was still faintly blue around the ears. Makeup couldn't hide it all. She stood stiff, jaw tight, eyes burning. The moment I opened the door, she hissed my name like a threat. You think you're clever? She said. You have no idea who you mess with. I stayed calm. Smiled even. Then explained the video. She froze. Because power only works when no one sees behind the curtain. And now? The curtain was gone. She turned and walked away without another word. But the real fallout? That was scheduled for the next HOA meeting. And trust me, everyone showed up. The HOA meeting was supposed to be routine. Budget updates. Landscaping contracts. Complaints about parking. The usual theater of suburban control. Instead, it turned into a public reckoning. The community center was packed. Folding chairs filled. People standing along the walls. Phones already out before the meeting even started. Brenda sat at the front table, posture rigid, hands clasped so tight her knuckles looked pale, still faintly blue if you knew where to look. She didn't make eye contact with anyone. The meeting opened with the treasurer droning through numbers no one cared about. The tension in the room was thick, buzzing, electric. Everyone was waiting for the moment. The question. The spark. It came from an older man in the second row. Why was our HOA president opening a package that wasn't hers? Silence. Every head turned. Brenda cleared her throat. Smiled that practiced HOA smile. There seems to be some confusion. I stood up. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult her. I just held up my phone and said, I have video. Would you like me to play it again? Again. That word landed hard. Murmurs rippled through the room. Someone whispered, Again? Another neighbor shook their heads slowly, like they already knew the answer and hated it. The board members looked at each other. Cornered. One of them nodded. I hit play. No commentary. No edits. Just the raw footage on the projector screen. Brenda walking up. Picking up the box. Opening it. The blue dye exploding across her life. Gasps. Laughter. One sharp. Oh my God! Someone in the back clapped before realizing they probably shouldn't. Brenda stood up mid-video. "This is harassment," she snapped. "This man set a trap. For someone stealing packages?" I asked. That's when the room turned. Questions started flying. Fast. Loud. "How many packages? Were you opening hours too? What else have you taken? Is this why my delivery disappeared?" Brenda tried to regain control, but authority doesn't survive exposure. She stumbled over words. Contradicted herself. Claimed she was protecting the neighborhood. From what? Amazon boxes? One board member leaned into their mic. "Brenda, did you take packages that weren't yours?" She didn't answer. That was it. You could feel the shift, the exact second the power changed hands. The board called a recess. Brenda stormed out, heels clicking like gunshots against the tile floor, blue stains still faint on the hem of her pants. During that recess, neighbors talked. Compared stories. Shared dates. Descriptions. Suddenly, this wasn't my problem anymore. It was everyone's. When the meeting reconvened, Brenda wasn't there. Instead, the vice president announced an internal investigation. Temporary suspension of Brenda's authority. Access revoked. Keys collected. But the biggest blow came after. 2 police officers entered the room. Not for me. For her. Because once multiple residents filed reports, with evidence, it stopped being a civil matter. It became a pattern. A charge. Theft. I watched from the back as one officer asked if anyone had footage or proof to submit. Half the room raised their hands. And just like that, Brenda Walsh, the HOA tyrant, the clipboard queen, was done. Or so I thought. Because what she did next was quieter. And far more desperate. Brenda didn't rage online. She didn't confront me again. She didn't post HOA statements or send legal threats. She disappeared. No emails. No group chats. No sightings in the neighborhood. Her BMW stayed in the garage. Her house stayed dark. No porch lights. No patrol walks. No clipboard. At first, people celebrated. Then the quiet started to feel wrong. Because power-hungry people don't vanish, they reposition. 2 weeks passed. The investigation moved forward. Police reports stacked up. Statements collected. Evidence compiled. It looked clean. Simple. A straight line from theft to consequence. Then my power went out. Not a blackout. Not a storm. Not a grid issue. Just my house. I checked the breakers. Fine. Checked the meter. Dead. That's when my instincts kicked in. Electricians feel when something's off. I opened the service panel and froze. The main line had been cut. Clean. Precise. Professional. Not vandalism. Not random. Targeted. Someone had accessed the external conduit and severed the feed. No scorch marks. No sloppy damage. Whoever did it knew exactly where to cut. That night, my Ring camera caught movement. A hooded figure. Late. Quiet. Avoiding the light. Not Brenda. But someone working for her. I called the police. This time, they came fast. Because now it wasn't HOA drama. It was sabotage. It was infrastructure interference. It was criminal. They pulled footage from multiple houses. Same figure. Same route. Same timing. Someone had been checking cameras. Mapping blind spots. The next day, an officer told me something that changed the tone of everything. Brenda hired a private contractor. Off the books. Cash payment. We traced the vehicle. She wasn't trying to get revenge socially. She was trying to hurt me quietly. Make my life unstable. Make me unsafe. Make me fold. That's when the fears shifted. Not panic, clarity. Because this wasn't about packages anymore. This was about control. About ego. About a woman who couldn't accept losing power. The contractor was arrested. He flipped immediately. Gave names, messages, payment proof, instructions, screenshots. Brenda's instructions were clear. Make it look like an accident. Target the power. Don't get caught. That evidence went straight to the prosecutor. New charges. New case. New level. And suddenly, Brenda wasn't just an HOA thief. She was a defendant. The neighborhood changed overnight. Patrol cars. News vans. Whispered conversations. People avoiding her house. Kids asking questions their parents couldn't answer. Miguel asked me, "Dad, are we safe?" I said yes. But I didn't sleep that night. Because I knew something important. People who lose everything don't escalate loudly. They escalate desperately. And Brenda Walsh had just lost her title, her reputation, her power. And now, her freedom was on the line. The court date was set fast. Once utilities are involved, the system doesn't drag its feet. Cutting power isn't petty revenge, it's endangerment. Especially when there's a child in the house. Especially when there's proof. Brenda was arrested quietly. No sirens. No spectacle. Just a cruiser in her driveway at 6:18 a.m. The same hour she used to patrol the neighborhood with her measuring tape. Poetic in a way that felt almost too perfect. She didn't look defiant anymore. She looked small. The charges stacked up like bricks. Multiple counts of theft. Property interference. Conspiracy. Retaliation against a witness. The dye pack incident, which she tried to spin as assault, came back around and sealed her fate. Because motive matters. And the timeline told a story she couldn't escape. Her lawyer tried everything. Claimed HOA authority. Claimed misunderstanding. Claimed emotional distress. But video doesn't care about feelings. The judge watched the footage twice. Once in silence. Once with questions. Why was she opening packages not addressed to her? Why did the theft stop only after exposure? Why was power cut to a witness's home? There were no good answers. Brenda pled out. Probation. Restitution. Mandatory resignation from the HOA board. Permanent no-contact order. Community service, ironically, working theft prevention programs. The HOA dissolved the old board within a week. New leadership. New bylaws. Transparency clauses. Camera protections. Clear limits on authority. Sunrise Meadows went from controlled to cautious overnight. Neighbors started waving again, but this time, it felt real. Miguel's packages stopped disappearing. Mine too. The porch became just a porch again. No bait. No traps. No fear. But the real moment came later. A package arrived with no return address. Inside was a handwritten note. I believed her when she said she was protecting us. I'm sorry. Thank you for standing up. No signature. I stood there for a long time holding that note. Because this wasn't about winning. It was about proving that even in places designed to look perfect, abuse hides in plain sight. And sometimes, all it takes to expose it is light. Or in Brenda's case, bright blue dye. But before I tell you what happened to her house after she moved out, there's one last twist. And it's the part HOAs never want you to know. 3 months after Brenda moved out, the house went up for sale. Same bay exterior. Same manicured lawn. Same driveway where she once stood drenched in blue dye, exposed in front of the entire neighborhood. But something was different. The listing price was low. Too low. Curiosity spread fast in Sunrise Meadows. People whispered. Realtors hesitated. One neighbor finally pulled the public records. And there it was. A disclosure requirement. Because of the legal case. Because of the documented thefts, the sabotage, the retaliation, Brenda's house now carried a permanent notation. Not about crime. Not about damage. About HOA abuse of authority. Every potential buyer had to be informed that the former owner had been removed, charged, and barred from HOA leadership for misconduct involving residents. That kind of stain doesn't wash off. The house sat. Weeks turned into months. Price cuts followed. Eventually it sold, to a quiet couple who kept to themselves and never joined the HOA board. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Sunrise Meadows changed after that. The HOA still exists, but it's different now. Meetings are recorded. Votes are public. Power is limited. Rules are enforced, but explained. Authority has oversight. And packages? People started leaving them on porches again without fear. As for Brenda? She moved 2 cities over. Took a job with no leadership title. No clipboard. No patrols. Just anonymity. The kind she never gave anyone else. I still work as an electrician. Still fix broken systems. Still believe most problems have clean solutions, if you're willing to look at the wiring instead of pretending nothing's wrong. And every time a delivery driver sets a box on my porch, I smile. Because sometimes, the smallest packages carry the biggest consequences. So if you're dealing with an HOA tyrant, or someone who thinks rules don't apply to them, remember this. Control only works in the dark. Expose it, and it collapses under its own weight. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever dealt with an HOA nightmare? What would you have done in my place? Drop your story in the comments. And if this hit close to home, you already know what to do.